Hello everyone. Are you guys having fun? I hope you guys are having fun. I'm Kia. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a huge honor for me. Today, I would like to talk about the future of Vuex. So we all know that Vue 3 is coming out, and there was a big announcement from Evan about that. We also have updates on Vue Router as well. But what about Vuex, right? What's going on with Vuex? Let's discuss about that. But before going into the topics, please let me introduce myself a bit. I'm Kia, I live in Japan, and I'm one of the Vue.js core team member, and my main focus is obviously Vuex, and I'm also the creator of Vuex plugin called Vuex ORM. I'm working at Global Brain, which is one of the largest venture capital in Japan, but we do have office all over the world. So if there's any startups attending this event, and if you need any investments, don't hesitate to contact me. So I guess that's enough about me. Let's dive into the future of Vuex. Today, I would like to talk about two topics. First, I would like to talk about the state of Vuex, what is going on with the current Vuex. Then I would also like to talk about the future of Vuex, what is going to happen in Vuex in the future. So the first topic. Currently, the latest version of Vuex is version 3.5.1, and also Vuex 4 beta is out. So Vuex 3 is for Vue 2, and Vuex 4 is for Vue 3. Yes, I know it's confusing, but please remember this mapping. Vuex 3 will not work on Vue 3, and Vuex 4 will not work with Vue 2. So Vuex 3 is going to be supported as long as Vue 2 is supported. So if you're using Vue 2 at the moment, and if you're planning to keep using Vue 2, don't worry, Vuex 3 will always be there for you as long as Vue 2 is supported. So what about Vuex 4? The focus of Vuex 4 is the compatibility. So Vuex 4 is a compatible version of Vuex 3 for Vue 3 with the exact same API as Vuex 3. So in other words, there's no big changes in Vuex 4 compared to Vuex 3, only it works with Vue 3. Internally, Vuex 4's reactivity system has been updated to use the latest Vue 3's reactivity, but all of the public APIs remaining the same. The only reason why we're bumping the major version is because it doesn't support Vue 2, which is a huge breaking change. Although the APIs are exactly the same as Vuex 3, Vuex 4 has a few new things and also breaking changes. So one, it has a new bundles aligned with Vue 3. I think most of you don't have to care about this, but I'll explain this one a bit more on upcoming slides. And next, we have new installation process. Again, not huge change, but it's different. And we had slightly better TypeScript support. Again, it's not a huge one, but it's something requested for a long time, but we couldn't implement it to Vuex 3 due to its breaking change. Now we are able to do this. And logo plugin is included in the core package. Again, if you're using things like Vue DevTools, I think probably you never use this logo plugin anyway, but it's a small breaking change. So the first one is we have new bundles. The naming convention is the same as Vue 3. So we have vuex.global.js for direct using script tag, and we have ESM modules for bundlers, and we have common.js modules for node.js. Only thing that changed is the naming of the bundled files. So if you're referencing these directly inside, for example, your Webpack config, please make sure to update them. And next, you have new installation process. So we have this new create store function to create the new store. And how you install Vuex to Vue has changed. So the first one is simple. Instead of using new vuex.store, use create store function. Technically, this is not a breaking change because internally we still have store as a class. So you can still do new vuex.store like you would in Vuex 3. Create store function is a simple wrapper that does new vuex.store thing inside that function. However, Vue 3 is now using create app method to create app instance, and Vue router is using create router method. So this is more of a styling issue. It's more consistent this way. So I recommend just update the create store function when you're migrating to Vuex 4. But this part is a little bit different. In Vue 2, you would install Vuex by passing Vuex object directly to the Vue's use method. But in Vuex 4, instead of passing Vuex, you have to pass store instance to app use method. And also, you don't have to inject store into the component to use it inside a Vue component. You only have to pass store instance to the app use method, and you're good to go. Slightly better TypeScript support. Well, in Vue 3, we couldn't add a Vuex 3. We couldn't add type definition to this.$store in Vue component. It was always any type. This was because we had the type definition file. In Vuex 4, we removed it. So in other words, you have to provide the shim file yourself. But because of that, you can define your own store type. This only affects TypeScript users. And if you don't want to do that, you can just define this file and type it as any, and it will be all the same as Vuex 3. Last, the logger plugin is now included in the core. So the only difference is the import path. Pretty much nothing more to talk about here. Just remember to update your imports. To wrap up, these are the changes in Vuex 4, which means all other things like defining state or actions and such is exactly the same as the Vuex 3. I hope it's very easy to migrate from Vuex 3 to Vuex 4. It should work almost all the time out of the box. And you can read about these changes in Vuex GitHub repository, v4.0 branch we have. So there's a README there. So if you're interested, please check it out. Now, let's move on to the main topic, the future of Vuex, which is Vuex 5. Woohoo! Well, now Vuex 4 is still in beta, and now I'm talking about Vuex 5 already. Well, because Vuex 4 is really just a compatible version of Vuex 3 for Vue 3, so it doesn't have many major changes. And we do hear a lot from the community about how we can improve Vuex. It has so many issues, things like TypeScript support is very limited. So we were continuously having discussion inside the core team. What can we do to make Vuex better? In fact, we had Vuex improvements proposal RFC published once, but then the Vue 3's new reactivity system and composition API came out, and we dropped the Vuex RFC at that time so that we can maybe rethink about how Vuex works, especially with this new Vue.js reactivity system and composition API. So today, I'm going to introduce the new Vuex idea that we have right now in the core team. Please remember that this is still a draft and it's not a final RFC or anything, but I hope you would have an idea of our direction of Vuex improvements. So what's new in Vuex 5? It supports both option API and composition API. It has complete TypeScript support. Not only the code will be rewritten in TypeScript, every single API should be typed. No mutations, only actions. We see lots of confusion and inconvenience with mutation and action. There are clear separation of concern, really, where actions can be asynchronous, but mutations have to be synchronous. But when you're building reasonably large apps, mutations becomes just a bunch of setters. Like all it does is state.name equal name, you know? So we think it's better if we have only one single way to mutate the state. No nested modules, compose instead. So current Vuex has this module system that can be nested and used in another store. The module system was introduced to namespace the specific part of the store, and also it enables to use that module inside another module as well. But the current problem of module is that you have to manually register them. So let's say you have a module that is being used only in like 2 components. And if you only want to add modules when users are actually using that component, you have to manually register them inside the component via register module method. Also, it's making it hard for TypeScript to type it because dynamically added modules can never be typed. So we introduced this new composition of stores instead. By doing this, we get automated code splitting. So if you have a store that is only being used in a specific part of the app, that store should only be loaded when users are actually on that component, right? And it should be automated. Now, these are the key features of Vuex 5, but instead of going through each by each, let's walk through the code and see how Vuex 5 will look like. First step, let's define a store. Now in Vuex, Instead of defining modules, we define a store. So we use this new define store function to do so. It's not create store, it's define store. And I'll come back to this and explain about it in a bit. But now this is just empty store. You have to define state and such, right? So the first things you need to do is to define the name property. This is going to be the identifier of the store. It could be symbol too, but we are using string here. This store is called counter. Now, this identifier is important for server-side rendering, but also for DevTools support to determine the name of the store. Next, we add state. This is same as current Vuex. You'll pass the default state. That's it. Now let's define getters. Now here it becomes more interesting. It is also same as current Vuex, except it doesn't take any arguments. You can see the double method here is referencing this context to reference the state. Maybe some of you are getting confused here, but stay with me. Next, let's add actions. Again, same as getters, it references the state through this context. Now, how you access the state inside the store is more unified. You can simply access them through this as if it were a Vue component. Now, we have store definition. This is whole store definition, but this is just a definition. So you can't really use this just yet. To use the store, we need small setup. First, we create a new Vuex instance. It's not a store instance, it's a Vuex instance. Then you can call vuex.store method and pass in the previously created store definition to get actual store instance. Now, I'll explain why we need this new Vuex instance concept in a bit. So let's move on. But after we got your store instance from vuex.store method, we can use that store as simple object. As you can see here, counter.count is 1 and count double is 2, because remember the double is a getter. So it acts like computed property in Vue Component. Then you can call action increment. This is going to increment the state value. Then after that, you get new state. So there's no more dispatch or commit function. It's as if it was a simple object. And I think this makes much easier to use Vuex, especially for someone is new to Vuex or even Vue. Also, this is completely typed. Everything is typed here. And the best part is you don't have to do anything to get this typed. You don't have to define any generics or anything. This is all typed just like Vue Component is typed. Now, this is how you would use store outside of the Vue Component, but how do we use it inside a Vue Component? At first, you need to pass the Vuex instance to the app use method. This is going to install Vuex in the Vue app instance, and you will get access to Vuex instance inside the Vue Component. Next, inside the Vue Component, just like current Vuex, you'll fetch the store inside the computed property. In this case, we have counter computed property, and it's returning the store instance as same as I've shown you before through vuex.store method. Now you can use the store object inside the template. Simple, isn't it? But this is kind of overwhelming that you have to define multiple computed property for each stores. So we have this map stores helper functions. Just like helper functions in current Vuex, you can just pass in multiple stores and get mapped to the Vue component. The rest is the same. Now, the interesting is that the store now looks almost identical to Vue component. If you change the property names, like if you change state to data, getters to computed, actions to method, it's same as Vue component. This makes things easy to move your Vue component logic into the store too. So you can probably, in many cases, just copy the function to the store and it should just work. Now, this is options API, right? Both Vue Component and Vuex store is using options API. The store was written in options API. Now, you can also use composition API in Vuex 5. It looked like this. We use the same define store function to define a store, but instead of passing in the object, we first pass the name of the store, and then we pass callback function. This function behaves exactly the same as Vue's composition functions. You can use all of the Vue.js reactivity stuff inside here. We don't have any predefined state or getters or actions. We're using simple ref to define the reactive value, using computed for computed value. and a simple function to mutate the value. You can, of course, use any other reactivity stuff as well, like reactive or watch function. So you get complete freedom here. And not to mention, this is also very friendly to TypeScript. Everything is typed here. And to use it inside setup hook in Vue Component, you can use this new use store method. And the rest is the same as before. Now you can use the store instance inside the template. So this is cool. It just acts like a simple composition function. But if it is just a composition function, why do we need define store function? Why do we need Vuex in the first place? Can't we just use plain composition function? Well, because we need to support SSR, server-side rendering, this is required. So to be able to use server-side rendering, the store cannot be a stateful global singleton. So if you use regular composition function, and if it has global state, you can't just import them and use it because it is going to break the server-side rendering. You have to inject the store or reactive state inside Vue.js instance. So here, when we install Vuex instance to Vue app, we inject that instance. So this Vuex instance acts as a container or registry for all of the stores that it's going to be used inside your entire app. And whenever you call vuex.store method, Vuex will initialize the store state and registers to the Vuex registry. And when it gets called for the second time, it just returns the register's counter store. So you always get the same result. If you use just a regular plain composition function, you have to do this manually. And there are many ways to do this, but the problem is that you have to do it. And by using Vuex, that's already done. So, and also, if you use plain composition function, probably it wouldn't work in options API Vue Component, and that can be troublesome. And one more benefit about using vuex.store approach is that it enables automated code splitting. Stores are only important in the component which actually use it. So your bundlers like Webpack or Rollup can simply strip the unused stores from the bundles so you can reduce the bundle size. Now we know how to define a store and use them, but how can we use a store inside another store? In current Vuex, you can use modules to do that, but in Vuex 5, we don't have modules anymore. So how can we use this? Well, we use a store composition. Let's say we have this greeter store, and let's say we want to use this inside previously defined counter store. Let's first take a look at options API pattern. Here, you can see new use property right here. Inside this function, you will return any numbers of stores you would like to use inside the store. Then you can just access it through this context. Easy. Internally, all it does is calling Vuex store for you. So you can access greeter store in both getters and actions. Now, what about in composition API store? Pretty much same as option API store. Instead of having a use property, you have access to use method as a callback argument. You can use this use method to retrieve the store instance, then just use it inside anywhere you want. With this store composition, you can have unlimited combination of store usage. And the beauty is all of the stores are imported automatically depending on how you would compose the stores. So you still get automatic store import or code splitting. So if a component uses the greeter stores only, then only the greeter store gets loaded. But if you load counter store inside your Vue component, both counter store and greeter store get imported. It's all transparent and automatic. Very nice. So this is really it for Vuex 5's core features. You can define store, you can use it inside component, and you can compose store. And everything is typed and automatically code splitted. So very simple. But last thing I would like to talk about is, what about plugins? For example, what if we want to use Axios inside stores to call APIs? Well, you can add any plugins like this. The plugin feature is inspired by Nuxt. This is most of the Nuxt plugin system works, but so plugin function will get access to provide method. And you can just call provide method, give its name, and the object that you would like to provide to the Vuex instance. Now inside store definition, in options API store, you can access that access through $access property. Again, very similar to how Vue Component handles these kind of plugins. And in Composition API Store, you have access to the access object inside context object, which is passed to the callback function, like this. Really simple. You can just inject whatever object you wish and how many plugins you want. For TypeScript support, you have to provide a type definition for that object, for the plugins, but it's simple as this. Again, pretty much the same as how Nuxt defined the types. So yeah, that is for the Vuex, Vuex 5. It gets much thinner, much simpler, and I hope you like it. And I think you all got a brief idea on our direction for the future of Vuex. And I think the next question is, when we will see Vuex 5 RLC? So the answer is after Vuex 4 official release. First, we would like to focus on Vuex 4 at the moment, make sure everything works fine. And also, I think we'll get lots of feedback, especially about the Composition API after Vue 3's official release. So I'm thinking it's worth correcting those feedbacks first and make sure if this new Vuex idea is the correct path to take. Final note, the current Vuex 5 ideas are still unstable APIs and overall architecture is subject to change in the final RFC. However, if you have any questions or ideas, I went really quickly this one, so maybe you have lots of questions, but please don't hesitate to contact me. You can ping me at Twitter or maybe in this conference. I'll be more than happy to discuss with you. I'm Kia. Again, thank you so much for having me. I hope you'll continue to enjoy this conference. Thank you so much.